What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Ben on Sports. And we're back to the weekly NASCAR preview and prediction series. From here until NASCAR's championship race, there's no more off weeks. Kind of worked out that there was an off week last week, in my opinion, because it gave us the ability to do an NHL and an NBA playoff preview without having to do 3 episodes. Kind of interesting how that worked out, isn't it? But we're back. NASCAR is back after the Easter weekend break. And like I said, they have 20 something more weeks left. I'm excited. And this weekend, they are returning to super speedway racing in Talladega. With that being said, let's get into our storylines. Is there now a big four? I remember the mid 2010s, you had the big three of Harvick, Truex, and Busch. And then in 2017, they won like 12 of the first 14 races. And then all of a sudden, Joey Logano, or I guess it would be 2018, finds a way to win his first championship. I think so far this year, it certainly seems like we have a big four who have won every race except Las Vegas out of the first 9. If you haven't been watching or paying attention, those first 4, in no particular order: Kyle Larson, William Byron, Christopher Bell, and Denny Hamlin, 4 of the best drivers in the sport, 2 drivers from the 2 best teams in Joe Gibbs and Hendrick. No wonder, it's not a surprise coming into the year if you said that those 4 drivers would dominate the start. They're top 4 in point standings, or all 4 are top 5. I think there's a tie at one place, but yeah, it's no surprise those guys are at the top, and I feel like they are officially a big 4. You feel pretty likely that a championship contender is coming from one of those 4 drivers, or the championship. That's not to say somebody else can't join that group. There's a couple other drivers. If those guys are in 1A, I have a 1B tier list I'll talk about later on. But they're Christopher Bell's 1-3, Hamlin's 1-2, Larson's 1-2. And William Byron has won 1, defending his Daytona 500 crown, but he's leading NASCAR in points. He's leading the Cup Series point standings, even though he may not have multiple wins like the other guys. So is there now a big 4? Well, so far at the beginning of the season, I think so. Let's see if anybody can find that same speed coming out of the bye week. When does Penske finally get in the victory lane? Blaney, Logano, and Cindric have all shown speed at different tracks at different time. You usually look at Penske as the 3rd best team in NASCAR, at least over recent history. They have been. They're going to win a race, probably multiple races. When do they finally get to victory lane? This weekend could be a very good opportunity for them. For some, really any 3 of their drivers with how fast they are. When does Penske finally get in there, and can one of the 3 Penske teams, 4 if you count Barry, join that big 4? Is this the weekend for chaos to happen? I feel like the last couple weeks it's kind of been mostly guys you expect at the top. It's been normal racing, has been too much chaos. Some of the cream is rising to the top, right? Talladega, though, is a super speedway. Everybody knows how super speedways work. Close racing, lots of big wrecks. It's just a matter of how those races happen. Could this be the weekend we finally get a winner, that nobody expects to see coming? You can argue that Barry was like that, but maybe we get another crazy, nobody saw that one coming victory this weekend. Maybe some big contenders crash out early and it kind of shakes up the points in certain areas. Is this the weekend for chaos to happen? It certainly feels like it could be, especially because these guys have gone 2 weeks without racing instead of 1. A little bit of eagerness to get behind the wheel of the car. Who can grab momentum out of the break? Obviously, I already talked about the guys that have it right now, but there's a lot of people that are in the playoffs on points or just outside who, if they can continue to build momentum and find momentum, they can find themselves in a good spot to make the playoffs, or even go on a playoff run, even win a race or 2. Who can capture momentum out of the break? And is anybody going to lose momentum? Are any of those big 4 drivers going to lose momentum? Alex Bowman, somebody who started the season really well but has started to lose momentum, can he course correct, or is he going to keep losing the momentum that he's had with a lot of great finishes in a row? Is Bubba Wallace going to keep slowly fading away after a great start? Who knows? but I'm wondering who can grab momentum out of the break, and secondly, who's real coming out of the break, right? Like the break, it's funny, it's only a 1 week break, but it can really shake things up. Who is for real? Obviously, I think those big four drivers, we all know who they are. They've been around at the top. I think you can believe in all of them. But is somebody like Bubba Wallace real? Who's top 10 in point standings, been having a good season? Is Tyler Reddick for real? He's kind of been shaky, I would say, this season. He's fine on points, but he doesn't have too many great finishes. And does somebody else prove that they're real? Does somebody come that maybe that it hasn't had a great start come back and be part of that? Um, Maybe Talladega isn't the best indicator because of anything. Literally anything can happen. But going forward, that's something I'm interested in. What teams use that bye week to their advantage? And then the last thing here, personally thought NASCAR full speed season one was fantastic. Look at the lives of the drivers. A great look at the playoffs for 2024's 2024 playoff documentary, whatever you want to call it, for full speed season two is coming May 7th. Which means we still have 2 races before it comes out. But personally, I'm excited. I think it's great for NASCAR to be on Netflix. I think it's been a great series. So be looking forward to that coming out. All right, recent history at Talladega. The winners in next gen: Ross Chastain, Chase Elliott, first year, right? 2 Chevys, Kyle Busch, Ryan Blaney, Tyler Reddick, and Ricky Stenhouse winning a playoff race there last year, meaning it's back-to-back seasons with a win from Ricky Stenhouse, although he didn't make the playoffs last year. And both of them came at drafting tracks. Maybe you need to look out for, Ricky Stenhouse, Ricky Spinhouse, whatever you want to call him. A lot of Chevys winning races here. Not a lot of Fords or Toyotas. I will say that. Best average finish: William Byron, the only one averaging a top 10 with a average finish of 7.7. Chase Elliott, 11.8. Chase Elliott's always been good at Talladega. And like I said, he has a next-gen win here. Ryan Blaney has a next-gen win here when he was on his way to his championship in 2023. Average finish of 12.5. Eric Jones, maybe not somebody you realized, has a pretty good average finish at Talladega, at least in the next-gen. And then Alex Bowman joining 2 of his Hendrick teammates with the 5th best at 14.2. He wasn't, before next gen, he didn't have a lot of great finishes at Talladega, but in the next gen, it seems like he's been a little bit better. Most top 5s: Ryan Blaney and Brad Keselowski each have 3 top 5s, and for them not. Blaney's on the best average finish list, but it kind of tells you what's happening with Keselowski. Really, I think since he's gotten the RFK racing on super speedways, it's kind of either a really good finish or he's wrecking out early. That's why he wouldn't be. He's just outside of these guys. I think he's at 14.7, so he's not far off. But has some good runs and has some not so good runs for sure. 6 drivers are tied at 2 top 5s: Ross Chastain, Kyle Busch, Kyle Larson, Ricky Stenhouse, Denny Hamlin, and William Byron. None of those names are really surprising to me at all, personally. And then most top 10s: Byron and Eric Jones are tied at 4. And then there's 6 tied at 3: Todd Gilliland, Daniel Suarez, Chase Elliott, Denny Hamlin, Ryan Blaney, and Brad Keselowski. Brad Keselowski has 3 top 5s and no top 10s. Again, really good or not so good. Still have to look out for him this week. With that being said, who are my favorites to win? Well, Team Hendrick has multiple wins here. They also have 3 of the best 5 average finishing drivers in the next gen. Look out for Hendrick Motorsports. Joe Gibbs Racing. They don't have a win in the next gen at Talladega. That can't last too much longer, especially because they have at least one guy who's really good at it. They always have speed. They had some speed at Daytona this year, in my opinion, and they won Atlanta, even though Atlanta's not exactly like Talladega. But Joe Gibbs and Hendrick are pretty much always 1 and 2. Team Penske, they're always going to be fast, and the gap to the 1, 2, and 3, I think they're all pretty close. Team Penske has a win here, and if you're going to pick anybody on a super speedway, Team Penske's up there. They're always going to show up and bring speed, and the Fords love this type of racing. 23XI has a win here. Riley Herbst hasn't done really anything this year, but he's a good super speedway driver, always has been, bringing that 3rd car in, and Bubba Wallace and Tyler Reddick is one here, and Bubba Wallace is one here, and he's also a good super speedway driver. So 23XI may be a team to watch that you're not thinking about. RFK, Brad Keselowski's been fast here. Chris Buescher and Brad Keselowski won Daytona, another drafting track. And again, Fords are always fast. And I almost wanted to put front row because front row has been really good and Todd Gilliland has been good, but I trust RFK a little bit more than front row. My driver rankings of who I think is most likely. William Byron hasn't won a race in a while. He's won one here before. He's been fast all year. He won Daytona. Why not win Talladega? Chase Elliott needs a win. One of the most popular drivers in the sport, top 5 in points. He has a good points here, just waiting for that first win. He's going to get it eventually. Why not this weekend? Ryan Blaney, he's been super fast. His finishes are not matching his speed at a lot of tracks. I personally think Ryan Blaney, again, doesn't have a win this year. Very easily could find his way to victory lane this week. Brad Keselowski struggling way, way back in the points. He may even be too far back to make the playoffs on points. But he's been fast here. Almost won last spring before that contact and wreck with Michael McDowell last year. Fords are going to be fast. Maybe he can find himself towards the front dominating a race. Denny Hamlin, always a great super speed racer. He's on a hot streak. He's been super hot as of late. I think he can carry that momentum. And Joe Gibbs Racing, they want to get a win at Talladega in the next gen. They're like the only big team that doesn't have one, right? So look out for Denny this weekend. I have Todd Gilliland. He has a good average finish here. He's led some laps here. He's been good the last couple of years with Front Row Motorsports and super speedway tracks. I think that continues this week. For him, I think it's going to be staying out of wrecks and making sure he stays around other Fords. Bubba Wallace, it wasn't next gen, but his first career Cup win came at Talladega. He was fast at the Daytona 500. He can run out front on super speedways. He likes to. Look for Bubba Wallace, who's, again, off to a pretty good start this year to be fast. Joey Logano has won at Talladega multiple times, has it in next gen. He's led a lot of laps in next gen, but much like Talladega, or much like the Daytona 500 this year, he's out front a lot, but then can't capitalize on being out front. He gets in wrecks, kills his finishing position. If Joey Logano can avoid the wrecks that he seems to get into, I think Logano will be in prime position to win this race. Austin Cindric, one of, if not the best super speedway racer, coming from multiple other drivers, understands this type of racing well, seems to do a good job of staying out of wrecks, taking spots when he can, taking runs when he can. I have him at 9. Maybe he deserves to be farther up. I do think he's a really good super speed racer, but he just doesn't have consistent speed. But again, Ford's Team Penske on a super speedway, you're probably going to be okay. Wouldn't be surprised me to see him end up near the pole. Austin Cindric, a threat to win. And then Ross Chastain, somebody who's won this race, somebody who can get in the wrecks and super speedways, but he's with his aggressive, one of the 2 most aggressive drivers in the Cup Series. He's definitely going to try and find a way to put himself in position to win a race. Look for Ross Chastain to try and win a race, something he hasn't done in a long time. This gets me to the driver power rankings. Kyle Larson, after the absolute butt whooping he put on the field at Bristol going into the bye week, has to be number 1. Won that race. Wasn't even close. Denny Hamlin, hot streak, right? Won 2 races in a row. Racewell at Bristol was the second best car. Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin won 2. William Byron, your points leader, had an okay day at Bristol. He's still finding ways to get points, get good finishes. He's in 3rd. And Christopher Bell, the most wins in the series, had a good race, was one of the better cars, so got stage points, got a top 10 finish. Those 4, I think, are in a class of their own right now. And then the next group of drivers is a group of drivers I put in kind of that 1B, that second class behind them. Chase Elliott hasn't won yet, but he's 5th in points. He didn't have the day maybe he expected at Bristol, but he's still going to be fast. And I personally believe that Chase Elliott is going to get in victory lane. It's a matter of when, not if, for him. Ryan Blaney, somebody that maybe could have gotten in victory lane with a couple less engine failures, had a good day at Bristol, a good points day. He's in the top 10 in points, having consistent speed. Look out for Blaney. And then 23XI, I'm going to say Tyler Reddick. That second tier, I think, is Elliott, Blaney, and Reddick. I don't think Wallace is quite there yet. Um, Reddick, again, he's kind of had a weird season. He's fine on points. He's in a good spot on points, but he's on track to have less top tens than he did last year. And last year was when he won the regular season point championship. I think Reddick has a little bit less consistency this year, but I also think he's uber talented, and there will be a time when that team puts it together and gets on a hot streak, and they might win a couple in a row, or win 3 out of 5 or something like that. Tyler Reddick has had some good runs this year, some average runs, but he's still in a great spot on points, still a great team, and that is my second tier. I see Elliott, Blaney, and Reddick. Potential championship contenders, definitely surefire playoff locks. Again, the first 4 I have championship contenders already locked in the playoffs. The next tier is probably one of the bigger ones. It's Bubba Wallace at number 8, all the way down to Buescher at 13. That's kind of my should be playoff locks. Look like it so far, and can do damage in the playoffs if they get hot. Bubba Wallace, again, he's starting to tamper off a little bit, but he's had off to a great start, one of the better starts to a season he's had. I believe he's 8th in points, going to a track that he really likes. Bubba Wallace has been in the top 10 for quite a few weeks now for me. Joey Logano had, not his best drive at Bristol, but he still, seems like he's starting to get a little bit more consistent. He's still in the playoffs on points, going to a track that he likes and can stack up both stage points and get a good finish, if not win. Which is why he is there. Ross Chastain. I think Ross Chastain is finding a way to. He's being a good wheelman. I don't think he necessarily has the most speed every week, especially if you look at qualifying pace. But he's finding a way to get to the top 10. Sometimes get stage points at some of these tracks, which has been huge. It's keeping his team relevant because Trackhouse doesn't seem like it has the speed this year that it has other years. Ross Chastain. Whether he's being overly aggressive or not in some people's eyes, finding a way to keep themselves in contention for the playoffs. Chase Briscoe, 4th place finish, one of 3 Gibbs cars to finish in the top 4. Briscoe, I think is starting to. He said that they feel like his team. He feels like his team is getting close to clicking and putting it all together. If that's the case, maybe there's some more speed to be unlocked and they can raise up these rankings a little bit. But another solid weekend, got 2 stage points, finished 4th. Another guy that's, he's 12th in points, but he's not too far back as some of the guys in front of him. Not too far ahead of some of the guys behind him either. But Briscoe is somebody that should be looking pretty good for the playoffs if they can keep putting together consistent performances. Again, this is only going to be his second, third, if you count Atlanta super speedway drafting style track in a Toyota instead of Ford. Won the pole at Daytona. Maybe he can find some speed at Talladega. Alex Bowman, somebody that's top 5 in average finish at Talladega, as we suggested. Alex Bowman was really, really good. He actually won the pole for Bristol, was up front, got some stage points, and then had some issues, had some bad luck happen to him, and had a really bad finish, which is why he's down here. He probably deserves to be top 10 if he would have finished the race last week instead of being a DNF. But Alex Bowman had a really strong start to the season, was way up in the points, and he's still fine on points, but he's really, really struggled as of late. So again, some of it is stuff like blown engines, and some of it's not good finishes. Some of it's getting caught in other people's wrecks. It was a really good thing he got stage points in both stages last week. But Alex Bowman, after a couple of bad finishes in a row, moves down to number 12. And then the last person in this tier is Chris Buescher, number 13. Again, he's in the power rankings. He's just putting together consistent performance after consistent performance. Sometimes that's all you need to do. He's somebody that almost won a race last year, was good on, almost made it in on points last year after his breakout season in 2023. Chris Buescher wants to get back in victory lane, and I think RFK is lacking some of the speed they've shown in previous years, but I also don't think they're far off. If they can figure it out, I think Chris Buescher can definitely find himself in victory lane, but really all he has to do is keep on stacking good finishes, even if his finish at Bristol wasn't where he wanted it to be. And then this last tier is guys that I think well, one of them has already won, but this one's kind of tough. These are guys that have speed at some tracks, but not all tracks. Some of these, this is kind of the points bubble. These guys either need to win a race to lock themselves in or um get moving on that points bubble. And it's the rest of these guys, and I don't think they're all created equally. Like, I trust Kyle Busch a lot more than I trust a lot of these other names to make the playoffs and win races. But right now, these are guys like 14 through like 19, 20 in the playoff standings, and one of them has a win, so it doesn't matter. But yes, this starts with AJ Allmendinger, who only 9 cars finished on the lead lap at Bristol 2 weeks ago. AJ Allmendinger was one of them. Who would have guessed that? He's has quite a few good performances in his return to the Cup Series in a row. And they're not on road courses, right? Like, we all know what Allmendinger can do on road courses, but he's racing well, finding ways to get some stage points, get into the back end of the top 10. And if the playoffs were to start today, he'd be in on points, I believe. Maybe he's one spot out. Really good early season performances from Allmendinger. Can he keep stacking them and hang around in the points race if he can't get to victory lane? Ryan Preece was super hot in March. He's kind of started to fall off in April. But again, he's right on this points bubble where he can still make it in on points depending on the other race winners that happen around him. Can Ryan Preece find some momentum at Talladega? Man, I feel like Preece hates super speedways with all the big wrecks he's taken. But Ford, again, should be fast. RFK should be fast. Maybe Preece finds some speed and so gets his first Cup Series victory. Kyle Busch. He's won at Talladega in the next-gen car. He would love a win this year. Missed the playoffs last year. Made it 2 years ago, his first year with RCR. This is his third year now. He's on the playoff bubble. He's in the playoffs as it stands right now. He had a better finish at Bristol than he's been finishing there recently, but he really needs to have a good points day, or if he not a victory. Busch has won here. Chevy's been pretty fast at Talladega in the next gen. Can Kyle Busch find victory lane? I'm sure he would love that. He has the longest winless drought of his career right now. I'm sure he would love it to end that. Talladega, at a place where understanding how the race works is important. Maybe he can find a little bit of the luck that's needed and get there. Ty Gibbs, my first appearance in the top 20 in a while. Super strong third place run, picking up stage points. He's still kind of far back in points, but it's still doable this early in the season. Still looking for his first Cup Series win, and in this being his third year of Cup Series racing. Can Ty Gibbs find it? Maybe not this weekend. Hasn't been the strongest super speedway racer in the Cup Series. Granted, that might not matter. Who knows? But Ty Gibbs, can he find victory lane? Can he continue? Really, that's not even the question for him. I think the question for Ty Gibbs this weekend is, can he build on the best performance of the season so far for him and keep digging out of the points hole that he's in? Josh Berry is a race winner, but he's kind of struggled and lost essentially all the momentum he's had since he won that race in Las Vegas. Again, Fords are fast. Him and his Penske affiliate cars have been super fast at Talladega. He led laps last year at Talladega and was fast on super speedways with Stewart-Haas Racing last year. Josh Berry needs to rebound, even if he doesn't win his second race of the year in his career. Can Josh Berry rebound a little bit, have a good points day? I think that's certainly possible. Look out for Josh Berry. Carson Hocevar had a fantastic week last week. Well, he had a good week. It would have been fantastic if they didn't have the pit road mistake. He still found a way to rebound to a decent position after having issues on a green flag pit stop at Bristol. But he picked up stage points in both stages, was up front all day. Felt like he had a car that was top 5 or 6 in speed all day. Great rebound. Carson Hocevar, aggressive driver. There was some controversy at Atlanta, but Hocevar knows how to get around super speedways, and his aggressiveness could pay off with a win, even if it's rubbing people the wrong way. I don't think Carson Hocevar really cares. Maybe he gets his first Cup Series win, but I think just another good, solid points day with a fast car to continue building on what happened 2 weekends ago at Bristol would be enough for this team to be happy about. Then Ricky Stenhouse. trying to win a race 3 seasons in a row. I don't believe that's ever happened for Ricky Stenhouse. Won at the 500 in 2023, won at Talladega last year. Can he win at Talladega this year? Does it actually be back-to-back Talladega wins? Ricky Stenhouse loves himself a super speedway. He's really good at it. He can also call some wrecks with some aggressive moves. What Ricky Stenhouse shows up on Sunday. Again, he's not far out on points. He's moved to the wrong side of the cut line in recent weeks after a strong start. Where does Ricky Stenhouse finish this week? And can he make ground on the playoff cut line? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming out and listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Week 10 NASCAR preview and predictions. Thank you for supporting the content. If you're interested in the NHL or NBA playoffs, I have 2 episodes on both of those, the most recent episodes on the channel. Go ahead and watch them this weekend before some of these first round matchups are over, which certainly seems like it's possible this weekend. Thank you for taking time out of your days, weeks, and lives for listening. Have a great sports weekend. Again, NHL, NBA playoffs, NASCAR's returning with a big super speedway race. Those are always fun to watch. Thank you for listening. Take care of yourselves. Stay safe out there. Peace out.